Thanks so much to our producers for this week's episode: Danielle, Ginger, Mike to the D, Cat OJ, Devan, Savannah, PixeledDonut, Jeanelle, Michelle, Dianne, Joy, and Josh, who is our newest official member of the Nightmare Society campfire we keep going over at patreon.com/Nightmare Society. Welcome to the club, Josh. We're glad to have you. I recently got a couple of negative reviews on Apple Podcasts, which is unfortunate, but I understand not all podcasts are for everyone. But I wanted to say thank you to michelledrake for sharing her 5-star review and encouraging me to not listen to the haters. And thank you to lena.howland, who came back to very kindly add on to her previous positive review. So thanks to both of you. I also wanted to say hello to Jesser Calvi, and thanks for listening. As always, thanks so much to our contributors for today's episode: user Carissabythesea and user epic_username. Now, get comfy and prepare yourself for another episode of the Nightmare Society. I was driving a rental car at 3 a.m. Just my friend Theo and I heading home at the end of a busy road trip. We were on a twisting 2-lane road, the kind with no street lights, the kind that weaves through the mountains. We wanted to make it back before dawn, but a few hours from home, exhaustion hit us. Bleary-eyed, desperately trying to stay awake, we looked ahead for some place we could stop. Anywhere with lights. There was almost no signal on our phones to search for options, so we were relieved to finally see a distant gas station through the trees up ahead. It had been the only building and lights we could see for miles. As I drove towards it, I saw a blur and realized I had just passed someone, a man walking a few paces off the side beside the road, just at the edge of the woods. My brief glimpse had shown him in dark clothes, something long resting on his shoulder. Theo said. I made some sound of acknowledgement. We'd both seen it. Weird, but we weren't concerned. We were too exhausted to care. And then we were both very frustrated when the gas station turned out to be a small medical clinic, long ago converted from a gas station. They had kept the typical awning above where the gas pumps would be, and the lights were on outside, but the office was dark. We eased down the narrow gravel driveway and paused in front of the building anyway, trying to get enough signal on our phones to look for a hotel or somewhere safe to nap. The signal was still spotty, so we were resorting to paper maps. Neither one of us felt great about this spot, even if it was a little island of light in this dark area. This was when the man showed up in my rearview mirror, continuing to walk along, keeping at the edge of the pool of light. I had an immediate bad feeling and started the engine. No lights, just the engine. I didn't want to blind some poor guy trying to get somewhere if that's all he was. He passed us by. I saw his back and realized he was carrying a flag on his shoulder, wrapped with a cord. I couldn't quite make out the type of flag. It looked like it might be a US flag, but it didn't look quite right. The bars were too thick and there weren't quite enough, and I couldn't see if the stars were there at all. Hard to tell in the dark, and with the flag curled up. His clothing looked odd too, like some strange combination of a military surplus store, but I'd seen odd clothing on drifters before. He just passed on, kept walking into the dark, out of the light, and out of sight. I told myself he was just a local walking home from some hole-in-the-wall bar, or a homeless man heading to the next town. I told myself the exhaustion was getting to me, making me paranoid. We looked at the map for some time, cursing our bad signal, and finally we had figured out a route to what looked like the nearest large town, to get either a hotel room or just a safe parking lot to nap in. We got ready to go. I told Theo he could put his seat back to nap. I had a second wind. We would make it. Theo sighed in relief and put his seat back. I was pretty sure he fell asleep in seconds. I tried my phone again, watching the signal flicker in and out, then sighed and checked the paper map once more. Ready to go, I turned on the high beams to check the narrow road that led out of the lot, and my adrenaline shot up. Best energy drink I could have. The man had not walked on. He stood there, in the dark, and now my brights lit him up, facing right at us now. Dark clothes, dark military-style boots, and a huge smile. That smile raised the hair on the back of my neck. It seemed all sorts of off to me. He was staring at the car, just grinning, and he was blocking the little road in front of us out of the little lot. I waited. If this guy wanted to mess with me, he'd have to come closer. He had waited a good distance away. I could wait for him to move. I checked behind me, gauging if I could quickly back up, but it had been a weird turn into the place. A gravel road plus several concrete poles to move between, and it would not be a speedy path in reverse. I didn't know this car well, and I was not confident I could reverse without getting into an accident. I glanced at my sleeping friend. Then suddenly the guy was in front of our car. I'm still not sure how he could have done that, in what had must only been a few seconds while I was looking away. I can only blame it on the exhaustion, how he was just suddenly right there, light shining on his white teeth and his huge, weird grin. I must have made a noise because my friend woke and sat up. "The hell?" he managed, and the guy just stared at us, just grinning at us in the headlights, standing right in front of my car, just grinning.
"Some crazy guy,"
I murmured. We had both lived in big cities. We had dealt with crazy types before. If they weren't armed, usually they were nothing to worry about. I saw no weapon. I was wary, but not scared. Then I noticed a heavy-looking point at the end of his flagpole, still resting against his shoulder, and the mental image of him spearing it into my windshield, or just down the hood of my car, was suddenly vivid. I had no idea what was going on, but I didn't want to give this middle-of-the-night crazy person a reason to attack the car, and I knew I could not reverse quickly to get us out of there. I waited, mentally willing the grinning nutcase to walk on with his weird flag and clothes. I have no idea how long he stood there, just staring at us and grinning. After what seemed like a long moment, he began moving, but moving against the car, sliding to the side, slowly coming around to one side, but dragging himself against the side of the car as he moved. The car shifted slightly with the weight, and I could hear the slide of cloth and the drag of the wooden flagpole on the side of the car. A small, ridiculous part of my brain congratulated me on buying the insurance for the rental car, because he was definitely scratching it. The grinning man gripped the driver's side mirror as if using it for support, and leaned down. I saw a glimpse of that grin through my side window and looked away. I suddenly did not want to look at that freakish smile when it was only inches away from my face, just a little glass between us. Theo leaned over slightly, looking through the window. I saw my friend shake his head no, and then he firmly said no. I saw the grinning man make a hand gesture, and Theo said louder and more forcefully,
No!
The man straightened up, no longer leaning on the car. I saw his fist grip the pole, and I gunned it out of there, and he just stood there. The dark figure just stayed in that pool of light as I shot out onto the dark road. No longer sleepy at all, we had no problems staying awake until the next town, where we found a motel. So crazy, flag-carrying man, let's never meet again. I've always been borderline obsessive about locking doors. I did it as a kid, and as a teenager I learned, through experience, that a locked door is at least a deterrent and can give someone a warning that a person wants to illegally enter their space. It's something I'm known for. Even at social gatherings, I'll lock doors behind me when I come in without even thinking about it. I've heard the line,
Well, who the hell locked it?
followed by that flush of embarrassment because of course it was me. And now I have to say it. For over a decade I've done nightly checks because I can't sleep without doing so. Knowing this is a preface to my story and highlights how strange the situation is. I've only just moved here recently, about 5 months ago, from a way more heavily populated place in my state. The house where we reside is set far back from any paved road, separated by 2 dirt roads and 2 private driveways. My rental is on another person's property, so you go down their private drive and off to the side is my own private drive. And I've never seen a pedestrian walk back here. Nice and very, very private. No one can even come here without explicit instructions, and often I still have to meet them down the road, as the GPS places my house a few fields to the south of where it really is. It's a paradise for people like me, who value their privacy and don't like having visitors without prior notice. The house is semi-surrounded by trees and brush, with a field on the other 2 sides. It took a bit to get used to the rurality of it, hearing coyotes often, sometimes cows screaming in the night, and the darkness of having no nearby sources of light pollution. The nearest town is over 20 miles away. But get used to it we did. Another relevant tidbit, I don't sleep in a completely dark house. I always leave lights on in a common area, usually only one, but a light nevertheless. The back door leads off into the trees, but it didn't feel so creepy, as a few yards in there is a 6-foot-tall wire fence, laden with vines and offering a further modicum of privacy. No one uses the back door. There's really no reason to. A month in, and I found myself locked out. Unfortunately, I often lock the door handle on my way out of reflex really, as my conscious mind is the part where I know if I have my keys or not, but my subconscious takes over when I'm distracted. I knew I had only locked the handle on the back door and figured I could just pop it to give myself back in. I checked the door out and it was pristine, None of those minute scratches that are present when you take a flat metal object and pop the lock on a cheap door. I didn't want to damage it, so I swallowed my embarrassment and called the landlord, admitting that I had locked myself out and needed back in. He came and let me in, and I worked on being more mindful. A little more than a week later, I wake up thirsty. I walk groggily to the kitchen, and as soon as I open my bedroom door, I realize it's way darker than it should be. My ever-burning light is out. I wonder briefly if there's a power outage, but I can hear my fan behind me in the room I just vacated, so that can't be it. I take another step and the hair stands up on the back of my neck. That feeling that someone's watching. Another step and it's beyond feeling. It's a conviction. I turn my head to the left where instinct says a person is standing, and for a split second I'm relieved. No one is there. In the next instant, though, that relief abandons me as I notice I can see stars where only darkness should be. My back door is wide open. I take 2 very fast steps backwards, out of view of anything that could be in my backyard. Knowing I'm responsible for more people's safety than just my own, I don't retreat for long, almost immediately stepping back forward and further. I have to shut the door, of course. The entire path there, I just know someone's out there in the darkness, waiting until I'm close enough to snatch. I reach out into the pitch darkness for the knob, expecting to feel a hand close over mine at any second. After a moment of panic-driven fumbling, my hand makes contact with the knob, and I pull it shut with a slam. I go to turn the lock and find it still engaged. Maybe, just maybe this once the door wasn't completely shut. Like maybe the latch hadn't fully engaged. The turned off light remained a mystery. Both of my boys said it wasn't them, and that's very believable because they've never done it before. Both of them like having a light to find the bathroom and such, so I just write it off as strange. But nothing else was amiss, so it was just one of those things that'll never have a full explanation. From that point forward, I put my weight into the door anytime I check or lock it from my rare but occasional trips into the backyard. Life goes on, and I almost put it in the back of my mind, until almost 3 weeks later. I wake from a nightmare. For the last 10 years, I haven't had a dream I can remember, but I do occasionally have nightmare clusters. Mouth dry, bladder throbbing. It was one of those bad ones where you wake up making inarticulate sounds, trying to scream from a sleep-paralyzed mouth. Deja vu. After my bathroom trip, I emerge into a dark kitchen. 2 steps in, someone is watching me. The door is wide open. A panicked, quick retreat followed by a fear-fueled moment of bravery where I rush forward and close the door, sure at every moment that I'm about to be torn out into the night and slaughtered. Strange, I know for sure the door didn't pop open on its own this time. What the heck am I gonna do? My adrenaline rush finally crashes as I lay in bed after, trying to figure this out. I've left my bedroom door open this time so I can hear any goings-on in the house, and I finally fall back asleep with 2 hours to spare before I have to get up. When I get back up to wake my boys up, I'm halfway to the coffee maker before I see it. The door is open again. This time, no real feel of being observed, lights still on in the kitchen. I do what I already should have done and check the door and jamb for evidence of tampering. There's new scratches and bend marks where the aluminum gave way when being pried. At least this means it's not a ghost. I don't really know what to do. Life goes on. 2 weeks after that, the chickens penned 30 feet or so away from my bedroom window crow long into the night. Even the hens are part of the show this time, with the hens making eerie little screams. It makes my sleep fitful, not very restful, and I wake up at 2 a.m. when my fan goes off. Power's out. Damn. I get up to utilize the latrine and to light a couple of kitchen candles to save anyone needing to get up in the night from traversing the house in darkness. 2 steps in. Cue the hair on the back of my neck. And this time I can hear the crickets before I even turn my head. The door is, of course, open. After I survive another door shutting, I spend a lot of the day thinking about this. There was more damage, scratches and gouges in the jam this morning. I try to rationalize how this can possibly be happening, and I can't think of anything that makes sense. Any innocent reasons I can attribute to it go out the window when I remember this has never happened even once in the daytime. I think maybe I missed the scratches, that they were already there and my paranoid brain told me they were worse, which could be feasible, all except for the day I got locked out and remember it was in such good condition that I didn't even have the heart to pop the door myself. I decide to change the deadbolts around. The front door has a square lead cord lock. The back has a sloping one that I'm honestly sure is actually backwards in the door. Work picks up. Life moves on. That night I'm exhausted. I can't find my Phillips head, so in place of changing the locks, I put an errant Christmas decoration, adorned with bells, to place on the door handle and go to sleep. It's never happened 2 nights in a row anyway. I even considered setting up a camera, but thought of that little fact in my musings. Plus, I'm honestly scared to see what I would catch. For once, I'm in bed early and I fall off as soon as my head hits the pillow. Cue the nightmares. This night, I awake the first time at midnight, on the dot. Dark kitchen, back door open, scary as heck. Fall back asleep, wake up at 1:30, door open. Shit. Wake up at 3, and to my enormous relief, the door is closed. Fall back asleep, right into a nightmare. In this nightmare, I can hear Christmas bells. I come upon a little girl with her back turned to me, and in that weird nightmare logic, I'm at first not that afraid of her. I ask her what her name is. She responds with, "Someone's coming," chanting it over and over. She starts to get louder, and after a few crescendoing repetitions, all the while Christmas bells are in the background, she turns to me, jaw on her chest, mouth unnaturally wide, and screams,
"Someone's here!"
I pop awake. It's 5, and a false dawn shines faintly through my window. I immediately get up to check the door. Of course, the kitchen is dark. The door is open, but surprisingly no feeling of being watched. It feels like the danger has passed, like gun smoke in the air after the main event has gone. I close the door, and to my absolute horror, I turn to find the Christmas bells laid neatly on my dryer, no longer attached to the door. I talked to my boys that morning. Asked them about it and if they had heard anything the night before. My 13-year-old says,
Nothing at all. Except, no wait, I got up at 2:30 to pee and the back door was open. I shut it.
I ask him about the bells. He's pretty sure that they were there, on the handle. I switched the locks. A few days ago there was more damage to the door, but so far the lock is holding. So creepy door opening stranger. Let's not meet. And quit breaking into my house, stealing nothing but my sense of security. Those are some pretty creepy stories. If you'd like to submit your own story, you can email it to nightmaresocietyradio@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at Nightmare Society Radio or Twitter at Society_radio. There is still merch available on threadless.com/Nightmare Society, and feel free to check out our members only campfire on patreon.com/Nightmare Society. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time.
Someone's coming, someone's coming,